Hello and welcome to the Evolution Network. I'm your host, Joseph Potter, and joining me today, as always, is the ominous one, Chris Ransom. And today is going to be a pretty quick show, but at the same time, we're going to try to get out a little bit of information, what's to come with the Evolution Network in the upcoming months. And yes, we're going to go over the one interesting bowl game a little bit in depth here as well. So let's just jump right in and we can all cry later. So, Middle Tennessee, Arkansas State in the Rycom Media Camellia Bowl. It was Arkansas State 30 and Middle
We both
Tennessee.
picked Arkansas State to win this, so we were both wrong about this bowl game.
Oh, believe me, we were terrible throughout in that first day. So, both of us were, just so we can rest easy knowing we both failed on the 16th. And Middle Tennessee State won 35-30. It was a really know-nothing game. Justice Hansen from Arkansas State led the game in passing. He went 31 for 57, 337 yards, 54% completion, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, sacked 6 times, and he was a leading passer. And Hansen is a junior, so he will most likely be back next year. And he's somebody we need to keep an eye on as a developmental prospect for the 2019 draft, as he finished the season with 3,967 yards, 37 touchdowns, 16 interceptions. So that's a guy, Chris, we need to keep on our radar.
What was his name again? I'm going to add him to the 2019 FanSpeak Rough Draft Board, currently at 92 prospects. What's his name again?
Justice Hansen. He's number 15, junior quarterback for Arkansas State Red Wolves. He's 6'4", 207 pounds, needs to add some bulk, but
Yeah, it says here on ESPN, 31 for 57, 337, 3 touchdowns. And
yeah.
I do love the name Justice Hansen. I think Justice is an awesome first name. So whoever his parents are, kudos to you.
Yeah, definitely. And reference, he finished the season 305 for 487, 3,967 yards, 62.6% completion, 8.15 yards per average. So that can go up a little bit. 37 touchdowns, 16 interceptions, sacked 31 times. And he had a QB rating of 146.9 and a raw QB rating of 65.1. So he's got some things to work on. His decision making could use some work, but he's a guy that we need to keep an eye on next year.
Yeah, 2019 is already looking like a bigger crapshoot than this year. You've got Chase Litton probably coming back to Marshall. You've got Nick Fitzgerald coming back to Mississippi State. Jarrett Stidham's coming back to Auburn. Will Greer's coming back to West Virginia. There were a lot of project quarterbacks that really blossomed this year, but none of them really mastered that potential and really mastered their skill set. So 2019 is already looking like a bigger crapshoot than this year's draft.
Yeah, and speaking of quarterbacks, Nick Stevens of the Marshall Thundering Herd, a senior, led Marshall over.
Nick Stevens is the guy on Colorado State. Well, Chase Laton, the junior, is the Marshall quarterback you're thinking of.
Oh, yeah, he is. But he led. I got the stats right, and I got the names mixed up.
It's all right.
Yeah, I do stupid things like that sometimes. I'll make fun of myself later. Yeah, he's like I'm good for making fun of myself every now and then. But yeah, he led Marshall in a 31-28 win, and he had a very good season. He ended up 266 for 443, 60% completions, 3,100 yards, 7 yards per, 25 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. A strong leader. And that is something that no matter what you had to say about Marshall, they always come up with those strong leaders. And
Yeah, and Marshall running back Keon Davis, who had 100 rushing yards, he's a junior this year, 6'1", 210. He's going to be a senior next year. So I've already taken the liberty of adding him to the 2019 fan speak board. So we've gone from 92 to 94 prospects for 2019, and just by recapping these two bowl games. But as far as Colorado State goes, they probably would have won this game if they had better quarterback play, because Nick Stevens was a guy who was number 15 on my QB rankings in July. We took him off our board in August, and they have got a great receiver, Michael Gallup, but they just weren't able to execute. And the Marshall Thundering Herd just showed up. So they have 6 consecutive bowl wins, longest streak in the FBS. Good job, Doc Holliday.
Yeah, and the really something that he's really disappointed me, because if you look at it, I expected a better decision making out of Stevens. Really, I didn't expect him to throw 10 interceptions this year. I expected that number to be around 6 or 7 top, and I expected him to have over 30 touchdowns.
He's a guy that you expected. He never had that 3,500 passing yards, that 35 touchdowns, but he's a decent game manager. So the fact that
he did have 3,799 passing yards this season.
So he finally eclipsed that mark, but there's still going to be questions about his accuracy and decision making. Because when I saw his tape last year after the Potato Bowl, I saw a guy who could only make one progression, then he'd take off and run. And there were numerous times in that Idaho game where Michael Gallup was wide open and he didn't get him the ball because he didn't make the right read.
Yeah, and I agree with you. He's somebody you expect a lot more from and didn't really get much. The next game is Western Kentucky and Georgia State and the AutoNation Cure Bowl. And Washington State or Western Kentucky lost to Georgia State. Oh, I am all around here. I need more coffee this morning. I'm all over the place. And this was a game, I think we actually called this one right.
No, we both picked Western Kentucky.
We did? Okay, yeah, so we both screwed it up again. Like I said, I'm trying to give us some credit somewhere here.
The one game we got right, I think, was Troy versus
North Texas.
That's because we both picked Oregon over Boise. We were wrong on that. We both picked Western Kentucky over Georgia State. We were wrong on that. We were wrong on Colorado State beating Marshall, and we were wrong on Arkansas State beating Middle Tennessee. So we went 1 for 4.
Yeah, that was not a good.
And we both picked Florida Atlantic to beat Akron tonight. So maybe Akron will surprise Joey and make him happy with our track record being as horrible as it is this bowl season.
Yeah, this has got to turn around at some point. So yeah, the game was led. Western Kentucky senior quarterback Mike White led the game in passing, and he had a total of 26 for 39, 351 yards on 66% completions, 2 touchdowns and interceptions, sacked 6 times. He finished the season 368 for 560, 4,177 yards, 65 completion percentage, 26 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, sacked 44 times.
Mike White's offensive line just collapsed with the departure of Forrest Lamp at left tackle, who we talked about constantly leading up to last year's draft.
Oh yeah, they went from giving up 18 sacks to giving up 44. So they were a complete disaster. And the fact that he could still have a 65% completion percentage, throw 26 touchdowns and only 8 interceptions, that is a huge kudos to him because he did everything he could. And at 6'4", 225 pounds, he's a guy you're going to look for in the mid to late rounds.
He's going to both the Shrine Game and the Senior Bowl. Last quarterback that did that to go to both of those bowl games was Garoppolo. Just throwing it out there. So
and you know what that did for his draft stock, because he went as a guy who wasn't on anybody's radar, and he went to those 2 games, and suddenly he's the hottest thing in the NFL draft as far as quarterbacks go. So Mike White is a guy who I think is capable of making that same type of splash. I think he's got more physical intangibles than Garoppolo did, but at the same time, in that Western Kentucky offense, you got to wonder how far he's developed, and that's something I'll be interested to see come these all-star games, because he is going to have a chance to shine, and he's going to have a chance to make major strides being coached by NFL coaches.
The only 2 Senior Bowl 2 quarterbacks to get invites to both the Shrine Game and the Senior Bowl. And when I watched Luke Falk's 5-interception game versus Cal, I just want to look the other way. Mike White may not have gotten the hype Luke Falk did, but he didn't have a game of that magnitude where he killed his stock. And Falk has a better offensive line than Mike White, too. I mean, he's got 2 NFL offensive linemen, and Cole Madison and Cody O'Connell. Mike White doesn't have that, and he's carrying this football team. So I'm sort of interested to see where he's going to go, because my comp for him right now is probably a game manager like Josh McCown or Ryan Fitzpatrick, a journeyman, but a very effective journeyman who can be anywhere from a great backup to a solid starter. And I know Eric Galko called him his sleeper of the draft. Thomas Coburn compared him to Tom Brady, which I think is a little bit of a stretch, but there's a reason why people are high on Mike White. Tom Sullivan, the other cornerback for Georgia State, didn't really make as much of a splash, but Georgia State won a big bowl game that they were underdogs in. And to top that off, they finally landed a 4-star recruit in high school football. So things are looking up for Georgia State.
Yeah, and one more note on Mike White. You mentioned the Tom Brady comparison. I will say this. I remember Tom Brady. He was not a starter at Michigan. They were doing that 2-quarterback thing that nobody understood. Everybody said, yeah, he's going to be a good game manager. He'll be a good spot starter, an excellent backup. And then Belichick got him, put him in an offense that fit his skill set perfectly, and the rest is history. So if they say Tom Brady, and you're saying game manager, those 2 things coming out of college kind of go hand in hand. So you need to watch for that. And also Mike White almost fits every category for a Bill Parcells quarterback. So I think the only one he's missing is a winner. So when you look at it, don't discount Mike White in
I watched his tape. I didn't like him as much as Brandon Doughty, but a lot of people in the scouting community believe he's light years better than Doughty.
Yeah, and I wasn't as impressed with Doughty. I like Doughty, but I wasn't as impressed by him and how he would translate. So just somebody that we're going to need to keep an eye on, and I think that these 2 All-Star games coming up will end up showing a lot when it comes to what he's capable of. And moving on, the LNR Carriers New Orleans Bowl, we had Troy beating North Texas 50-30, and this is a game that it did have another senior quarterback, Brandon Silvers from Troy, and he had another good year, nothing spectacular, but a good year, and he capped it off by going 24 for 31, 305 yards, 77% completions, almost 10 yards per attempt, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, and sacked 1 time to cap off his college career. So that is another senior quarterback with extremely good numbers and on a very high note.
Yeah, I'm looking up Brandon Shore's major really quickly because I don't believe he'll be drafted. I'm just curious to see what he ended up majoring in. He's majoring in sport and fitness management, so he's a sport management major, basically.
Yeah, and sports management is something that a lot of people bypass, but it's a great way to make a living. So, I mean, kudos to him and wish him well in his future endeavors.
Best of luck, whether it's the NFL or whether it's as an agent or you're going to find a way to make it work.
Yeah, and that is for all of these teams, or all these senior quarterbacks we're going through. Best of luck to all of them. And finally, we have the Las Vegas Bowl, which
or to all seniors in general.
Yeah, it sponsor. It's in Las Vegas. Just say, "Ooh, look at the lights." You're gonna have
Caesar's Palace Bowl. The Caesar's Palace Bowl. The Caesar's Palace Bowl.
Yeah, it's like from Caesar's parking lot.
They could also make it the Trump Casino Bowl, but that would be a disaster.
Yeah, it's like, why is our bowl bankrupt? Yeah, it's like, wouldn't be something that's like live from Caesar's parking lot. It's the Las Vegas Bowl. Getting taken out on stretchers after 1 tackle. Yeah, and this one, Chris and I failed again as Boise State, number 25, beat Oregon 38-28 and they were led by they were led by Cedric Wilson, senior wide receiver. He ended the season with 83 receptions, 1,511 yards, and 7 touchdowns. This game he had 10 receptions, 221 yards, with 22 yards average, and ended up with a touchdown. I mean, this guy just blew past everybody on Oregon, and it was fun to see. The 6'3", 188-pound senior wide receiver, Cedric Wilson. So, Chris, where do you expect Cedric Wilson to go in the draft?
Cedric Wilson, he is a senior, and this is a guy Thomas Coburn told me about back in September, but I didn't have him on my board because I haven't heard about him getting a Senior Bowl invite, but I do like him. He's talented. He's definitely somebody who could be a great steal on day 3. Archie Lewis did good at right tackle in this game. He really won a lot of battles. That was mainly the prospect on Boise I was watching. And I was watching Justin Herbert struggle immensely. Boise State is a right outside linebacker that could declare for the draft, who got a lot of pressure on Justin Herbert, who is absolutely woeful without Tyrell Crosby at left tackle or Royce Freeman at running back. Like, I wasn't even aware that those guys were out and inactive until the day of the bowl game. And then I was thinking, oh, snap. It's too late for me to change my pick. Boise State's probably going to kill Oregon. And that's...
Yeah, and they did a pretty good job of it too, didn't they? And so this bowl week was extremely unspectacular, but at the same time, we got to look at a few mid to late round draft prospects. And I mean, got some sleepers in there that were playing on the 16th. And then tonight, we've got a few more sleepers that are going to be playing in the game as we look at led by senior quarterback Thomas Woodson. Yeah, senior quarterback Thomas Woodson, who threw for 14 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 1,777 yards. And I mean, and they're going to be playing with, well, it says at Florida Atlantic, but we know it's a bowl game. It's the Cherry Bundy Tart Cherry Boca Raton Bowl. Okay, let's go Boca Raton Bowl. This was the bowl that I wanted to beat my head against the wall when we did our recaps, because nobody wants to say Cherry Bundy Tart Cherry Boca Raton Bowl. Okay, that just sounds like you're trying to do a children's tongue twister. So it's going to be the Akron Zips tonight against Florida Atlantic, Tuesday, December 19th, 7 p.m. And I believe this is on ESPN. And Thomas Woodson, once again, good leader, is not going to get drafted this year. I don't think, because Akron really doesn't have any standout players. And they're going against a team in Florida Atlantic that, and in the end, you can look at it, they're led by Jason Driscoll, sorry, a player I like. He's a junior quarterback. He's not going to go into the draft this year. He only had 1977 in yards this season, but he threw for 13 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. So he was extremely effective. He threw for 65% completions, and he only threw the ball 253 times. Compared to other big names, that is really low, and almost by half low. He threw it more times. He threw 70 more passes in 2016 than in 2017, and with the lower passes, he threw it at a higher rate. He cut down on his interceptions by 7, while bringing up his touchdowns by 4. So in 2000, and he did not play against Navy or Wisconsin. He did not play those 2 games. So first 2 games of the year, he wasn't there. So, Chris, what do you look for in the 6'2", 210-pound junior tonight?
Well, I'm looking for tonight's game. I think we're going to see a purely one-sided contest with Florida Atlantic winning this game in very convincing fashion. They just have more on the offensive side of the ball, more to work with, and I think that's one thing that works in their favor.
So I'm going to do an over-under, and I want a quick answer on this one. We're going to exclude the North Texas game because in that game, Driscoll threw for 357 yards, 68% completions, and he threw 35 passes. That was his most on the year.
Driscoll? Who are you?
Yes, Jason Driscoll.
Oh, you're talking about Jason Driscoll, the little brother of Jeff Driscoll, I'm guessing.
Yeah, and I think he's cousin to Jake Driscoll, and I keep calling him Jake Driscoll. I have
Devin Singletary is the running back on Florida Atlantic, and I feel like he's going to have the best game.
Yeah.
I will.
But here's the over-under I want from you. Other than that North Texas game, Driscoll's best game was against Charlotte in yards, 245 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And his best game was against Florida International at 239 yards and 4 touchdowns with 1 interception. Do you believe, over-under, Driscoll gets more touchdowns and yards in this game than he did against Florida International?
Yeah, well, this is the thing. This is his second year as a full-time starter. he took over for Florida Atlantic in 2016 after Jeff Driscoll left the team. So he got to sit behind his younger brother as a freshman redshirt and learn under him. He was redshirted, then his brother started. So he's redshirted the year his brother was the starter. He got to sit behind him on the scout team, and then he got to learn from his older brother for a year, and then he became the starter by beating out the other quarterbacks on the team. So,
yeah, but does he get over or under 239 yards, 4 touchdowns in this game?
I will say he gets over 239 yards. He gets around 260, but he only has 3 touchdowns instead of 4.
Okay, so over on the yards, under on the touchdowns. Yes.
I think Singletary, I do think it's going to be like a 42-17 type blowout, but I'm thinking that we're going to get 2 or 3 touchdowns from Driscoll, and we're going to get 3 or 4 touchdowns from the running back. I think Devin Singletary is going to be the MVP of this game.
Yeah, because the Driscoll family has this thing that my family had, and it's the worrisome obsession with first names that start with J that confuse everybody. So I'm saying this. Next year, not this game, because we both already said Florida Atlantic over Akron, even though it pained me. So I'm going to say next year. This year, Driscoll had 1,977 yards, 13 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Does he over-under on for Driscoll on 3,500 yards and 25 touchdowns next year?
I will say he gets over 25 touchdowns, but under 3,500 yards. But he gets around 3,097 yards.
Yeah, so in other words, because the thing that really gets me with Driscoll is how good his decision-making is.
His decision-making is so good, but he doesn't have the arm his older brother had.
Yeah, and to see if he ends up being another Colt McCoy or another Baker Mayfield, in the sense, great decision-making, great ball placement, but is his arm good enough? So, I mean, and let's face it, he's playing at Florida Atlantic, so he's not going to have the competition. So he's going to be able to improve on some of these things.
Yeah, and Devin Singletary at 5'9", 200 is only a true sophomore, so he will be back next year too. So both the quarterback and the running back will be back next year for Lane Kiffin. So Lane Kiffin just has to try to recruit someone. He doesn't have to try to fill all the positions now because he's got some leaders. He's got some good players.
Yeah. And as much as I don't like Lane Kiffin, I think that's been well documented over both the Draft Utopia podcast, and I think I've mentioned it on this one. He brings that NFL offense. And so Driscoll is going to he's going to be ready for the NFL game, probably more ready than most other quarterbacks, because he's going to have that NFL offense that he's working with. He's going to have some of the terminology. He's probably doing the same things that a quarterback in the NFL would do at a much lower level. So, I mean, if as much as I don't like Kiffin's going to have Driscoll ready for the NFL. So I believe that Driscoll, at the very least, will be a very good backup in the NFL. Can you agree with that?
Added Jason Driscoll to the 2019 FanSpeak board. That's 95 prospects if Darnold goes back. He might declare, but I'm going to try to keep track of the QBs really quickly. 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 5 in the top. 5 in the top 8, 17 picks, and then that's Ryan Finley if he goes back. That's 6. Will Greer 7. McSorley 8. Malik Rozier 9. Shea Patterson transferred from Ole Miss to Michigan, so that's 10. Nick Fitzgerald 11, but Shea Patterson. If Shea Patterson's transferring from Ole Miss to Michigan, doesn't he have to sit out a year?
Yes, unless it's a unless he gets a waiver because of injury or coaching change or something like that. A lot of times they'll give him a waiver to work with. So, I mean, in that sense, yeah, he's probably going to have to sit out because I don't think there was anything there that would.
So I'm not going to count him. I might even have to take him off the fan speak board then for 2019. So 7, Fitzgerald 8, Litton 9. Then you've got Kyle Allen of Houston, that's number 10. Gage Goodbread of Eastern Washington at 11. Brett Ripien, Boise State 12. Easton Stick, North Dakota State 13. Then you've got Justice Hanson, Arkansas State 14. Jason Driscoll 15. So if we take Shea Patterson off the board, we have about 15 quarterbacks in the top 95 for 2019 so far. So this class actually looks like it's deeper than 2018, but it's also more of a crapshoot.
Yeah, and so, I mean,
I can't say for early. It's just speculation at this point. But
crapshoots, I don't like crapshoots. They drive me nuts. So we're gonna have that. When somebody says crapshoot to me in a draft sense, that means we've got to watch a lot of tape because nothing should be a crapshoot. I know I've used the term, you've used the term, but that just means we've got to go back and watch a lot of tape because these guys are all over the freaking place. So
they are, though. It's like Justin Herbert was supposed to be that high-notch QB, won up all Pac-12 over Darnold and Rosen, but without a supporting cast, he stunk. Jarrett Stidham, we're going to have to watch him in his bowl game over Central Florida. And then you've got Kelly Bryant, DeAndre Francois coming back from an injury. So these guys are all over the place. And if Darnold doesn't come back to school, then this draft becomes even a bigger crapshoot because if he goes back, he's probably the first pick. And that gives us a little bit of clarity.
Yeah, and so to recap the bowl games from the 16th, which, yes, in the description I put from 16th to the 18th because I wasn't paying attention to what I was doing on there and just wanted to make sure everything was in place. But to go back and recap this in the Raycom Media Camellia Bowl, it was Middle Tennessee State over Arkansas State 35-30. It was Colorado State going down to Marshall 31-28 in the Gildan, New Mexico Bowl. It was Georgia State beating Western Kentucky 27-17 in the Auto Nation Cure Bowl. Troy beating North Texas in the R&L Carriers New Orleans Bowl 50-30, and Boise State beating Oregon 38-28 in the Las Vegas Bowl to sure up the first day of bowl games. And tonight we implore everybody to watch Akron and Florida Atlantic and to please watch for this young quarterback who Jason Driscoll, because he could have, if all is said and done, a very good future, whether it be an NFL backup or improving his arm strength and such to where he can be a starting quarterback in the NFL a la Andy Dalton. And he's geared for a big year next season. So come in, watch this guy, and watch his running back, Devin Singletary, 275 carries, 1,796 yards, 6.5% average, or 6.5 yards average. And so watch this game, watch these two guys for Florida Atlantic, a couple young guys with great futures ahead of them. And
yeah, if Boise State's junior redshirt returns to school at 6'2", 240, Boise State will have 3 senior linebackers for 2019.
And that's a that's definitely a great thing for Boise to have that type of leadership. So that's going to do it for us today. And remember, we're going to come back here starting in January. And no, this is not our last broadcast of the year, but we're starting in January, bringing back Draft Outlook. We're gearing up for the NFL draft right after the new year starts.
Yeah, my draft game's officially at 200 players. I'll try to add more during the bowl game tonight. So because we did get a list of new Senior Bowl invites, and there was a controversial decision. Wonecki did not get a Senior Bowl invite, and I'm really disappointed in that. But Chark and Braxton Berrios are going to be players we're going to have to start watching tape on, see where they end up.
Yeah, and so that'll do it. Remember, watch out for Draft Outlook as it comes out around the new year. And
basically, we're going to have one more show later this year, maybe, but it's going to be another bowl show. And Joey's relaunching Draft Outlook immediately following the NFL season in 2018.
We're starting our draft season. We're gearing up. We're getting ready. So for all of you guys who are listening, hit those like, share, subscribe buttons. Leave us a comment. I'll do everything I can to answer every single one of them. And, just keep listening. We appreciate the support that you give. And for Chris, I'm Joseph Potter. Have fun and take care.